It's been a while since I've done a set review, and the new Miku set just came out, so this is the perfect time to get back to it. This will work just like my other set reviews. We'll look at the 16 cards that I found the most interesting, keep in mind, most interesting, not most powerful, in the new Miku set, and then if this video gets a good response, we'll look at 12 more. However, before we begin, I've got a small announcement to make. As you all know, Valentine's Day will be upon us in just a few days. This year for my Valentine's Day special, I want to do something kind of fun, not just a waifu deck. So here's what we're gonna do. In the comments below, I want you to give me an anime ship. And here's the interesting part. It can be any two characters from any series you want. You want to ship something super weird like Asuna Kanji or something? By all means, be my guest. But you do also have to include a reasoning in your comment as to why they make a decent couple. I'll pick the answer that I like the best and make a deck around it. Also, this should go without saying, but the characters you pick have to have cards in Weiss. Otherwise, I can't build a deck around them. And it can't just be one card, they have to actually be legitimate card sets in Weiss. With that out of the way, let's get started. Part of the upgrade that Miku decks got was decent level 3 support, and we're going to look at yellows first. Kagami Rin Original F second. If you have 3 or more other music characters, this is an 11,000, which is pretty decent. This pretty much makes cards like Shadow Labrys ineffectual because it'll step over them every time. You also have really good back row support. When you play it from hand to stage, during that turn, if its damage is cancelled, then it deals 1 damage. It pretty much has built-in shot. This actually makes it a really reliable attacker, especially because of the 1000 boost. You can use this to step over a 10,000 level 3 that isn't getting as much assist as you are, and not only do you reverse them, but if your damage is cancelled, you deal 1 damage anyway, which at level 3 needs to be happening. Finally, it has a climax combo like most of the Miku cards do. When Kokoro is in the climax zone, you can pay the cost, which is 1 when this attacks, and you can search your deck for 2 music characters and put them in your hand. That effect is kind of decent. Like, the main reason that you would use this is you pay 1 when this attacks, and you get 2 more of these to put in your hand, and then next turn you just swarm the field. Overall, Rin Original F second really impressed me. One of the things I'm kind of sad to not really see in the game anymore are the cards that let you shuffle your discard pile back into your library. This is one of my favorite things about Disgaea, is shuffling my discard pile back into my library, dealing 1 damage to my opponent, and it adds another element to the game because the player who can stop themselves from taking the 1 damage from having to reshuffle is the player that's kind of a little bit ahead. Also, if you used up all of your climaxes really early and you know you don't have really any more climaxes in your deck, or you've only got like 1 floating around, then getting to shuffle your discard pile back into your deck gives you an advantage because it stops your opponent from having like that weak spot on you. The effect is kind of coming back with Kagami Len the White Edge. I really like this card. I really like it a lot. It only gives 2,500. You're losing 500, but you know, who cares? 2,500 is still a lot of backup for it to give. And when it's used, you can pay 2 more and shuffle your discard pile back into your library, which is awesome. I kind of consider the next 2 one card because they work off of each other. If you play the Climax Soundless Voice while you have Rin Soleil in play, then you can put this in the memory and search your deck for the Len that you see on the right and put it in play in this card's original area. This is super useful because the Len is a very powerful card and also has Recollection, which will come into effect when you send this card to the memory. You can also just have this be reversed in battle and then pay the 1 to have it go to the memory anyway, but then you don't get to search for Len, which makes it a little bit less useful. Looking at Len CL, he is a natural 7,500 if you pulled off the combo and Rin is in your memory, and that's naturally pretty good, but it also has the effect that when you attack and Soundless Voice is in your climax slot, and you also have Rin in your memory, so you pulled off the combo pretty much. This gets 3,000 power until the end of your opponent's next turn, so it's a 10,500 the turn that you pull this combo off. So everything about this is good. First of all, it's not difficult to pull off at all, especially because Rin's effect doesn't cost any stock, so you're pretty much getting Len for free. This doesn't happen when you attack, it happens during the climax phase, so when you put Len in play, then you're still going to have Soundless Voice in your in your climax slot. I'm sorry, I blanked there for a second. It's going to proc Len, and you're going to be guaranteed 10,500 at least until the end of your opponent's next turn. And even when that's over, it's a base 7,500 attacker. That, remember, was free. They did a lot in this set to make level 1 a much more deadly level, and this is one sort of example of it. So the last thing we're going to look at in yellow is not necessarily this card, but the deck that this card creates. There's now a new deck type in yellow where you play these color changing level 2 yellows that can pretty much become all of the colors in the game, and for every color they become, they get a 1500 power boost, and that makes them really effing big. There's this event and then another event that does kind of the same thing but makes them a different color, and you need these to pull off the combo because it turns them into the different colors, but it's really neat that this kind of deck exists now. I'd say that the new yellow meta is probably going to be doing this color changing thing and also combining it with the Ren and Len we were looking at earlier to cover your level 1. I'm really excited to see what this means for the future of Weiss Schwarz sets now that they've started introducing the idea of swapping colors or gaining extra colors. And I'm also really excited to see what happens when people pick this deck up and start playing it. We get onto the main color green, and definitely it was improved, and it really shows. In fact, narrowing it down like this was really difficult. So let's start with always ringing Miku. When it's put in play and you reverse a character during that turn, you can discard a card from your hand, and if you do, the reversed character is sent to the clock. This is obviously really good. It deals direct damage, it gets rid of Encore, and the cost isn't that bad. The main thing I wanted to look at though is its climax combo. When you play its climax, you can pay 1, and if you do, you can search your deck for up to 1 music character and put it in any slot on the stage. On top of that, this gains an extra 1500 power for the turn. This is really ridiculous and has a lot of potential. First of all, an effect like this shouldn't cost 1. It should cost 2 or more, but it only costs 1. And there's nothing stopping you from getting level 3s. Granted, you can't use this to heal, but you still get a level 3 beater that just comes into play as soon as you play its climax. This card definitely deserves to see some play this season. Next we'll look at Flouncy Pastel. When you play its climax, which is Glory 3 USI 9 or something like that, you can pay 1 if you have Hatsune Miku's 7-colored line in play, and this gets 4,000 power until the end of your opponent's next turn. I just wanted to look at this because this is an alternate way to get the whole Ren-Len strategy off. It's not quite as good in my opinion, mainly because Miku's 7-colored line isn't as good, but, but it's still something worth noting because it's another level 1 that's capable of being 10,500 until the end of your opponent's turn. It also has the downside that it's only a 6,500 base instead of a 7,500 base like Len is. Hatsune Miku no Gekisho is a very costly event card that is well worth it. I would definitely run this at least 1 if I were running a Hatsune Miku deck. So it's a level 3 and it costs 9, but what does it do? When you play this card, all of your characters gain the following ability. This ability activates up to once per turn. When the damage dealt by this character is cancelled, stand this. So what does that mean exactly? It means if you attack with a character and its damage is cancelled, you can attack twice. This is especially powerful because if you are reversed, there's nothing stopping this effect from going off anyway. So if you suicide yourself into something bigger, like if you're attacking with a level 0 and swinging into a level 3 for the soul damage, and that soul damage is cancelled, you go from being reversed to standing again and being able to attack again. Unless your opponent is so stupidly lucky that they can cancel 6 times in a row, you're going to win the game when you play this card. You just deal too much damage, and you attack too many different times for them to deal anything. Deal with anything, I'm sorry. I just really like this card as a concept, and there are some cards that make getting that 9 stock a little bit easier. In fact, this last card we're going to look at does just that. So they included an interesting little mechanic in green in the new Miku set, where you can have 8 copies of Hatsune Miku Conflict in your deck. We don't see this very often. In fact, the last time I remember seeing it was the Haruhi set, and that was an event. This is an 8500 base that swings for 2 soul damage, which makes it a naturally really good card, but it has the added benefit that if it has a marker under it, it's an 11,500 base. But how do you get markers under it? Well, when this card attacks, if you have its climax in play, which is double-faced lovers, you can take one of your Hatsune Miku conflicts from your waiting room and put it face down under this as a marker, which also explains why we're allowed to run 8 of them. This card by itself can make an entire deck. If you play double-faced lovers and this already has a marker under it, then instead you get a different ability. If this card is in the front row and already has the marker under it, you can take 2 music characters from your waiting room and put them in your stock. That's so stupidly good. It thins out your discard pile, so when you reshuffle you have less regular cards and more climaxes. And it gives you a bonus if you've already got the marker and makes it so that playing a climax does not make this a dead card or ability. It also gives you enough stock to play really expensive plays like that level 9 event we were looking at earlier. Level 3 costs 9, sorry, I misspoke, but you knew what I meant. Like, this is just a really overall good card. I'd really only say the downside of this is if you are running this card, you really kind of have to run all 8 copies. Like, I can't see anybody running like 3, 4, 5 of this card. You have to run all 8 and you have to base your main strategy around it. It's not a splashable effect. You have to be building a green deck and expect to be pulling this off. But that's not even really a downside. That just means you have to build around it. Getting onto red, we of course start with the level 3. Mako original F2nd. If you have 3 or more other music characters, it gains plus 1000 power, so it's kind of like the yellow. Its second effect is what I'm really interested in though. During your turn, if you reverse a character using this character, you can pay 1. You can pay 1 stock. And then you can choose a level 2 or lower character in your opponent's front row and put it on top of the library. Not in their discard pile, not in their hand, it goes on top of their deck to become damage. I really shouldn't even have to explain why that's good. Obviously, it gets around things like Encore and stuff, and it clears up another spot so that one of your other characters can attack directly for extra soul damage. And that plus 1 soul damage isn't going to waste, because you know that there's a character on top of their deck, so you're going to be able to deal at least 1 damage. Oh, but wait guys, it gets even more ridiculous. You can also pay 1 during your main phase, and it gains the ability that when it reverses a character, that character goes on top of the library. So let me break it down for you. You play this card. You pay one stock. You have this reverse a character. It could even be a level 3 if you want to. Whatever, who cares? This gains another extra 1,000 and then another 1,000 if you have 3 music characters. 12,000 will reverse most level 3s. It goes on top of the library. You pay 1 more, which is pretty much paying the 1 card that you attacked with, so you're not really gaining anything, but pretty much you pay another 1, and you get rid of another character, put that on top of the library too. And then you direct attack with a level 3 or something bullcrap like that. It deals the plus 1 damage, and you know that both of the cards on the top of your opponent's deck are characters that are going to the leveling. This is just so good. It's such a good card. Scarlet and Crimson Leaves don't require each other like Ren and Len did, but I want to look at them at the same time anyway because Scarlet's effect works really well with Crimson Leaves. So Scarlet has the ability that if this is the only character that you control, at the start of your climax phase, you can discard this and discard 1 card from your hand to take 1 character that's level 1 or lower, mind you, from your waiting room and put it in play. This is really good. This is so good. It can be done on the very first turn. It can be done on level 0. Like, on level 0, you can have any level 1 Mako you want. And that would be kind of like a balanced effect if all the level 1 Makos kind of sucked. But we have an amazing level 1 Mako. So let's break it down again. Let's say you have a Crimson Leaves in your waiting room on the very first turn. Let's say you got rid of this so that you could refresh and draw some extra cards. Or let's even say that this card is in your hand. If you're running a full set of 4, then one of them is going to be in your hand eventually. Then let's say you play a Mako Scarlet on the very first turn. You discard your Mako Scarlet, you discard 1 card from your hand, Crimson Leaves if it's not in your waiting room already, and then you play Crimson Leaves for free without having to activate its bad effect because it wasn't played from your hand. On level 0, on the very first turn, you now have a 7,000 with Super Encore that you have to deal with. And when you level up, guess what? it's still a 7,000 with Encore that you have to deal with. This card's amazing. Like, honestly, Scarlet doesn't have to go into Crimson Leaves. There are other choices that you can do, but I love Crimson Leaves just for, like, the raw power of it, you know? Finally, we'll look at Blackjack. I still really heavily believe that every deck needs some form of brainstorm, and they've started releasing these cards that are events but also have brainstorm effects. This one, for example, is you play it, you pay 1, and then you flip over the top 5 cards of your deck, and for every climax you deal 1 damage to your opponent. Sometimes the effects from brainstorming are kind of not worth it. Like if you get rid of 2 climaxes and you get to search your deck for like 2 cards, put in your hand, like it's kind of okay, but you still would have rather had the climaxes. But this just straight up deals damage, and I actually think that dealing damage is worth not having the climaxes if you happen to hit them. And if you don't hit any climaxes, then you get to thin your deck by 5 cards and increase the chances of you climax canceling. One thing I'm really interested to see if people take advantage of is the fact that you can run a full set of 4 of these and just rush through your deck as quickly as you want to deal as much damage to your opponent as you want to, outside of attacks, keep in mind. Like, you get to attack on top of this, and then playing the Len backup that lets you reshuffle your discard pile back into your deck. I think fun times could be had with a deck like that, and I want to see somebody build it. There's also a character that goes with this event, but I'm not going to look at her because honestly I don't think she's as good or as interesting. But if you are going to run that kind of strategy, look into the character that can get this from the waiting room so you can recycle it even more. Alrighty, on to our last color. So this Kaito Autumn Shower card is, first of all, wearing a shirt, which already makes it a good card. And second of all, it gets plus 500 power for each music character you have. Let's be honest with ourselves. If you're a decent player, if you're playing consistently, you're going to have a full set of 5 characters on the field. So we can expect this to be a 10,000 that swings for 2 soul and costs 2. Most of the times, like, for example, there's a Miku in this set that is a level 2 at 10,000 power. Like, most of the times you have to sacrifice having that extra soul damage to get the 10,000 power. But with Kaito, you get both, okay? It's 10,000, it swings for 2 soul damage, and it costs the same as a 9,000 vanilla. Overall, decent card, needs to be in blue decks. I'd say it probably 2. This is another example where I kind of consider these 2 cards to be 1 card, so they kind of count for each other. When Moonlight Swallowtail Miku attacks, you can choose one of your other music characters and it gets plus 1,000 power for the turn. That's kind of good, I guess. And when it goes from the stage to the waiting room, you can choose one of your Rin Sunflowers and put this face down under it as a marker. Okay, so on your turn you play this and you play a Rin Sunflower. You put the Rin Sunflower in an open spot, you have it attack for direct soul damage, you attack with this, let it be reversed by your opponent's level 1, which is fine, and then when it goes to the discard pile during the Encore step, you put it under Rin as a marker. Okay, seems like a pretty cool strategy, so what does Rin get out of it? Well, let me answer your question. Rin becomes a 9,500 level 1 as long as there's a marker under her. What? Why would you do this? This is such a powerful combo. It's probably the strongest level 1 combo that I've seen in the game so far. Imprison Queen Asuna? Don't even talk to me about Imprison Queen Asuna. Imprison Queen Asuna needs like a 3-card setup, and when you pull it off, she's the strongest she can possibly be is a 9,000, and that's only during your opponent's turn at level 1. And then you can set it up to be a 9,000 during your turn on level 2. This is a 9,500 during both turns, as long as you have a marker under this, which is easy to do. And on top of all of that, on top of how ridiculously powerful this combo is, neither of these cards cost any stock, and neither do either of their abilities. Oh, you want me to go on? Okay, how about deck thinning? Getting rid of this card lets you play in a 49-card deck. Every 5 cards you get rid of is the same as having 1 extra climax in your deck. So you get rid of one of these, it's the same as going towards having an extra climax in your deck. You need more? Okay. 4,500. This baits out most level 1 Suiciders, because most level 1 Suiciders are either 4,000 or 3,500. This is just a really good combo. If you're playing a Miku deck, I definitely think that blue is the color you need to start going towards. Like, blue-green is going to be unstoppable when people figure out how to do it. Which is really hard to say, because red and yellow got good stuff too. But blue just got some of the best stuff ever at level 1, and green is just always really good. So, I don't know. I've gushed long enough, but this is a really good combo. Okay, there ain't no way we're going to top that, but we do have this Miku right here, which lets you discard one card from your hand to the waiting room and pay 1 when this card attacks, and for the turn it becomes a 4,000, and your opponent cannot use any form of Encore, including Super Encore and pay 3 Encore. This is just a really awkwardly good card because it gets around a lot of stuff, especially like later in the game when your opponent's saving up to use Encores, you can use something like this to assassinate something down, and it can't use its Encore anymore. This pretty much just guarantees that you're going to be using a field wipe during that turn. Like, you're going to be able to get over pretty much anything. This gives plus 4,000 power, so it's going to stand at 12,000 naturally, not including your back row support. So you're going to step over anything at level 2. It doesn't really matter. The one kind of downside it has is it will definitely be reversed during your opponent's turn. It's not that powerful, unless your back row is effing ridiculous, and this can stand at like a 10,000 on your opponent's turn or something. But overall, I think this is a really important card for decks to be playing right now, because if you can get rid of Encore, you can get rid of a lot of decks' core strategies. And if it's really not that useful, then who effing cares? It's not like having 1 or 2 of these in your deck is going to hurt you at all. It's just having a couple of them in your deck can stand against a lot of other decks' core strategies. That's all I'm saying. The last card we'll look at is Rin Suo Fox Spirit, which has the effect that you can pay 1 during your opponent's attack phase and move this to another empty slot in your front row. This isn't necessarily a super good effect, like this isn't really that powerful of a card at all, but I think it's a really neat effect because when this attacks you gain 1 stock. So when your opponent attacks, you can pay that 1 stock, move this to another space, and if your opponent doesn't have a full field, then like you can save this card and attack with it again. It's pretty much a card that can keep itself alive infinitely if your opponent isn't playing their level 0 properly or doesn't have enough level 0 attackers to fill up their entire field. And because at level 0 you can just side attack and get the same amount of damage anyway, like overall I think this is a really decent card to play. Especially because you kind of want stuff at level 0 that costs stock, so that if you happen to attack and get a climax or something, you can get rid of it really early. So, I don't know. I think this is a really good card. It's probably not going to be played in a whole lot of decks, but I like the direction they're taking, okay? I see where it's going. Alright, I see where it's going and I like it. I like where it's going. That's about all I've got to say on Miku for right now. The new set really did impress me. I don't feel like the original Hatsune Miku set is that competitive. I feel like there were some people that made it a little competitive, but I really feel like this new set is going to be what shoots it up into the top tiers. I definitely consider Miku a tier 1 deck now. Tier 2 at the very least, but I definitely think it has enough cards to become tier 1. If not in the Japanese metagame, because I know that Kontai's still kind of like Ponin over there, but definitely in the English metagame, I'd say that Miku is probably... I'd say that Persona's still a little bit more powerful than it. Just a little bit, though, okay, guys? Like, they stand kind of close, neck and neck. 51-49. You know what I'm trying to say. I feel like right now, if you're going to play competitively, it's Miku, Sword Art, or Persona, and that's pretty much it. So, thanks for watching, everybody. Let's enjoy Miku before they bring Kontai out and destroy the English metagame and make English Weiss virtually unplayable, but that's a rant for another day. If you enjoyed this video, please leave it a like. Those things really do help us out. Leave me your thoughts on the new set in the comments section below, along with your pick for cutest anime couple. And finally, subscribe to stay up to date on the latest Kudou news. Until next time, Weiss fans.